It just means more. That should get everybody's attention in SEC country. Or how about this? Go Gators, get up and go. It doesn't matter who you cheer for because you're going to be excited today about today's guest because you're going to learn something. He's an awesome guy. He's none other than the head women's tennis coach at the University of Florida, Mr. Per Nilsson. So Per, how are you? Welcome to the Pro Talk podcast.
Thanks, Rob. Really excited to be on here with you. It's been a while, so it's going to be fun to catch up.
It's been a while, and it's good to talk to you again. And I'm actually going to take off this Snuggie because it's almost June here in Atlanta.
You look good in it.
Yeah, it's not bad if it was December. My wife is a Gator. Her father started the dentistry school, and we tried to get our daughter interested, but she went to Georgia. So anyway, so you grew up in Lund, Sweden. Is that correct?
That's right. I was in Sweden until I was 17.
Okay, and I've never asked you, but was it tennis was the route that got you to the States?
Yeah, yes and no, I guess. I was a big soccer player growing up, played until I was 16, started tennis kind of late, probably 14, 13 and a half, 14 is when I picked up a racket. And then that became, the thing that I did. But it wasn't the reason I came to the States. It was just kind of one of those times where it was popular to become an exchange student. And your parents would send you over to the US for 9 months for you to kind of learn English and have an experience. And so that's how I ended up coming over. So it wasn't really because of tennis or soccer or anything like that. So I spent 9 months in high school, senior year in high school here. And I was probably just going to go back home and go back to school and do my thing there. But I've stayed ever since.
Okay. So did you play high school tennis here your senior year?
Yeah, I played high school tennis. They sent me to Jackson, Mississippi. That's where they sent me. I thought I was going to Florida, but changed plans last minute and ended up in Jackson, Mississippi, and played high school soccer, high school tennis there. And then my history teacher there was the one who actually told me about college tennis and, got me connected with the Mississippi State coach and, just, all right, let's try that, see what that's like. It was kind of one of those fly by the seats time and,
Yeah.
never looked back.
Cool. I got to ask you because most people assume if you were Swedish, you grew up with a hockey stick in your hand.
Yeah, I'm from the south of Sweden, and so basically like Florida, you could say, in Sweden, and there wasn't a lot of hockey back then. So I was super interested in hockey. It's a huge sport over there. I'm not really built for it. So, and plus where I was from, there wasn't any organized hockey. It was all up north.
Yeah.
Now it's changed. Now there's hockey everywhere, but it wouldn't have been, I was 6'4", 150 pounds as a
Right.
college freshman. So I would have been crushed.
Yeah.
But I love hockey.
had to ask about the stereotypes.
Yeah, no, it's huge over there.
Yeah. Now, how tall are you? Because I know you're a little taller than 6'4", though.
No, I'm 6'4",
Okay.
always was, and put on a few pounds since then. But
Yeah.
kind of found a few media guys from back in the day, and I was like, yeah, I probably could have done some weightlifting there that could have helped me.
Well, I had the pleasure of playing with you in Atlanta, and what I remember is you just had a big game, big serve, big ground strokes, very solid at the net. When you grew up in Sweden, okay, we got Borg, Mats Wilander, Edberg, Anders Jared. Who did you model your tennis game after?
I wasn't watching tennis growing up other than when it was, a Grand Slam on TV and some of those Swedes were in it. There were so many. And, when I picked up a racket, it was once a week on a Sunday with 10 other kids. And it just I was lucky. I joined a club that was a big club. So there was a lot of really good juniors. And I was one of those clowns that they looked at and was like, hey, this guy, what's he doing? But I saw them and I was like, okay, I want to play with those guys. And so I just started hanging out with a couple there that were my age. And one of them, his dad was the president of the club. So we had a lot of access. That was fun. We had a master key so we can get into everything. And I started living at the club and it was like, maybe 10 of us around the same age, and they were much, much better than I was. But I was a good athlete. And so just, I was like, man, I want to be able to play with these guys. I want to beat these guys. And it took a while, probably took 2-3 years before I could hang with them. But by the time I was 16, 17, I felt like, I was one of them. And plus I was so hungry because I hadn't played I hadn't played a lot. I
Hmm.
grew up playing soccer, so I didn't have any coaching. I mean, I had a coach, but I wasn't part of the group. Uh, Henrik Sundstrom, he was a top 10 player. He was from that club, and his coach was named Roland Hansen, and he became an ITF coach. He was a head of all the ITF coaches. Unbelievable coach. But I never got to work with him because I wasn't good enough. And he was a very good technical and tactical coach. And so I didn't get any of that. And so, you know, I look back now and I realize, man, I knew nothing. I wasn't thinking. It was kind of scary. So, yeah, just an athlete with some power without knowing what to do with it.
And then you learned as you took the bumps. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't think I learned until I started coaching and got to be around coaches. Once I got into college, I was lucky to be around some coaches that actually knew some things, and then I was going. I remember coaches telling things to their players, and me going, "Man, I could have really used that."
Right.
like, and so exciting and sad at the same time because I was like, "Man, I wonder if I would have known this stuff."
Yeah.
You know. So, but I was
Yeah.
just excited to hear it, and then I'm still learning a lot.
Yeah. Well, the my path was similar to yours, not in the same scale. I started at 13, and it used to drive me nuts that I knew I was a better baseball and basketball player than the guy that just beat me in tennis, and that drove me crazy. And which I think has helped me as a coach. I'm curious and always trying to figure out what's more than just hitting a ball, or it's what somebody looks like. So it sounds like that's really helped you in your career path to pick away the layers of the onion and find out really what's in a player.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think now that I've coached for quite a while, and we're getting players that are between 17 and 19 years old, and we can tell right away what kind of coach they've had, and and a lot of times they've had an unbelievable coach, but we can see the area that they've been good at, and most of it is they're pretty good physically, and their technique's pretty good, but we don't get a lot of players that are really good mentally or tactically, and that's what I was like. And so, it kind of it hits me kind of deep when we get those players because I'm like, man, okay, let's not waste the next couple of years of just hitting harder and working really hard. Let's see if we can teach you the game. Let's see if we can teach you how to think, and let's stay in control. I mean, we have a new player this year, and anyone who watches her will say that's your number one for sure. And it's not. And I had a men's player that was the same way. And I told her, to hey, you need to read Winning Ugly. And she's like, what is that? And I said, well, it's a pretty good book that you should read. And I started reading it today too, just because I'm like, okay, she's going to hit me up with some questions, and it's
Right.
just fun. But yeah, it's interesting to see these players coming in, what kind of coaching they've had.
Well, the crazy thing is, the average person walks by and sees somebody hitting. There's a big difference in hitters that look good and players.
For sure. And, I've been on both the men's side in college, on the women's side now. And, they hit the ball bigger on the men's side. They serve bigger. There's a lot of forehands. It's not like that so much on the women, even though more and more they're starting to copy, and they kind of start playing like guys. They copy it. And if I watch one of the men's players on a good team, I'm very impressed at the very beginning. I'm like, man, they look like pros. But then if you sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and kind of dive into, okay, what kind of decisions are they making? Where are they putting the ball? How are they putting the ball there? You're like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, I see now. And so just hitting the ball big and with a nice stroke, you know, I, I don't know. Jack Frierson has a big name. He's a big name in my tennis. I think I lost to him. I don't know. It felt like 20 times in college. He probably beat me 4 or 5 times. He played for Georgia,
Yeah.
and I. It's like you said. You get so frustrated because you feel like you're a better athlete. You feel like you should beat this guy, yet he takes you to school every single time. And it's because he was way smarter than I was. He was mentally way better than I was. And I never problem solved. And I told my team this year, I was like, man, there's this one guy, man. He's in my notes. If I could play him again, I would love to go back. Just it would be so fun. It would be such a challenge. It'd be like, I might not win, but I'm gonna try all these things to see if I can figure it out. But I didn't have those tools back then when I was at that age.
It's funny you mentioned Jack Frierson. He beat me in the state quarterfinals or the quarterfinals of the Georgia State Open, like 4-3. And it was like, it was a joke. It was like routine. And he said, such a nice guy. He goes, "You got a really good game." I'm like, I gave you no threat, man. But, you understand why Georgia's, tough as nails. And TJ Middleton was very similar.
Yeah, TJ, I played once, not in college, but I played him in Atlanta one time. But both super nice guys, and
Yeah.
I'd love to have a 30-minute conversation with them and be like, "Do you even remember playing me? And what was that like for you?" Probably like, eating
Yeah.
wings, chopping, just loving it.
No.
There's this dumb Swede who doesn't know what he's doing out there.
Yeah. So you said you grew up your senior year in Jackson, Mississippi, and that's how you went to Mississippi State. Did the coach see you or what?
Yeah, I don't know if it was legal back then or not, but my history teacher, she called Andy Jackson and said she was going to drive me up there. So she did. She drove me up to Mississippi State and introduced me to Andy Jackson. I remember he fed me a basket of balls. There was two seniors that were graduating. They were watching, and all I remember is them laughing at me. And I was embarrassed or whatever, but I was decent. I was decent then. But there was two British guys on an official visit, and so I got to hang out with them. And the three of us kind of like, "What do you guys think?" And we were like, "Let's give it a shot." And so we decided we would do it together, and ended up working out.
How about that? Yeah, it's like there were rules.
Yeah,
That's yeah,
there are rules now. I don't know if you can get away with that.
yeah.
You definitely can't do that now.
I'm kind of being a smart aleck about it because it's like it's a joke when you hear about tampering or
Oh
coaches
yeah.
leaving in the middle of the season and crazy stuff. I saw in a previous interview that you had aspirations to play professionally, but you had a very bad injury. What was your injury?
It was when I knew you. I don't know if it was an injury or I had a medical situation. I had something wrong with my kidney, and when I ask my mom now if she remembers it growing up, she's like, "Yeah, man, you had some stomach aches here and there," but she doesn't really remember. But it started my senior year in college, where I basically had a kidney stone attack, but they never found any kidney stones. They thought it was my appendix. They wanted to take that out, but it basically lasted 3 hours. I was on the ground screaming, and then 3 hours later, I walk out of there like nothing happened. And so it happened once my senior year. Then when I went to Atlanta, it happened twice, and it became more and more frequent. So I was started for 7 years. I had these attacks, and they were coming more. And I gave up going to the doctor because I went to emergency rooms in the U.S. and Sweden and Denmark, and they always thought it was my appendix. But then I would say, "Hey, it's not my appendix. It's not my appendix." And then, one doctor prescribed ulcer medication. Someone, gave me stress pills. I was like, "I'm not very stressed. I'm good." And so no one really figured it out until 7 years in Atlanta. I went in. I remember I was on the ground at Atlanta Brave Stadium in the parking lot. My wife had stopped. It was actually I'd actually played TJ Middleton the day before in a tournament somewhere in Atlanta, and then I was playing Paul Mancini, and I started getting an attack in the middle of the match, and I can't remember if I finished it or not. I just told my wife we got to go, and then I said we got to pull over, and so I was laying on the ground there in the parking lot, and I told my wife we got to go in, and so we went to a hospital in downtown Atlanta, and they did a full body scan, and they came out and said, "Hey, we see something on your kidney. You might want to check out." And so a week later or next day, I can't remember, I went to a urologist, and he told me, "Yeah, you got a little thing there that's stopping your kidney from emptying. So it blows up like a balloon, and that has nowhere to go. And that's the pain. And
Yeah.
the kidney's going to fail if we don't do surgery." So 2, 3 days later, I had surgery, and I was good. But it was nice to have it done, but it was also frustrating that I
Yeah.
had that for so long.
I do remember the rumor. I think you were working with some ladies on Sibley at Old Paper Mill. One of them said that you had an ulcer. And I remember you telling me that you used to drink Coca-Cola like it was air. And
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, Per, what are you doing drinking soft drinks, first of all? But yeah, that's what the rumor was, that you had ulcers. And I think that was before you got it figured out.
Yeah. No, so I had the surgery way back in 2002, I think, and been good ever since. And they, I was lucky to be sent to a doctor who was a
Figured it out.
magician at that.
Yeah. Well, I want to go over your coaching resume here, that the people that don't know you with your impressive background. After you graduated at Mississippi State, you were student assistant. Was that for the men's team, Mississippi State? You started coaching there?
Yeah, I was just finishing up school and you know, kind of helped out the team that was there.
Okay. So you're a student assistant, Mississippi State, 95, 96. Then you were assistant coach at Pepperdine for 5 years. And then 6 years you came back and you were the head men's coach at Mississippi State, correct?
That's right.
And then you won back-to-back SEC West titles, correct?
Maybe, yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Okay. He's not hanging his hat on his laurels. I appreciate that. And then 2015, you became the Pepperdine head women's coach. And now here's what's impressive. In those 9 regular seasons, you won 81% of your team matches. You won 9 regular season titles and 8 tournament titles. Nice program you built out there.
That was the goal. The goal was to make it the best women's program in the country. And, when I was at Mississippi State, I told my wife that it was not easy to recruit. And I said, and I had a little bit of a goal of becoming the women's coach at Pepperdine because I felt like it was an unreal place to develop players, weather, location, academic. I just felt like, man, how could you not, full
Right.
scholarships. And so I was like, I had that as a little dream there that I would turn that into the best women's tennis program. And I told my wife, if I'm at Pepperdine, I'm going to get any recruit I want. I could pick. And so she reminded me of that when I started saying, man, it's not as easy as I thought.
Yeah.
I hadn't really, I'd been there on the men's side, but you have USC, you have UCLA, you have Cal, you have Stanford, you have some of these big dogs out there that I didn't realize how big of a brand they carried. And so it wasn't as easy as I thought, but the goal didn't change, and we had a lot of success, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, that you impressive resume there. That I remember flipping on the tennis channel one night, and you're on one knee at the NCAA's. I think you guys made the semifinals or finals. Did you get to the finals one year?
Yeah, we lost in the finals there one year. We lost 4-3, deciding match, 7-5 in the third. That was probably the one you were talking about.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I think I did not see the finals, but I remember they had it was some girl was just pounding, maybe your line 3 player. She was pounding the other girl like 4-1, and they had you mic'd up, and you said, "How many games do you really want to give this girl? Why don't you go ahead and finish her off?" I'm like, "Yeah, just take her out." And I think that was the semifinals. I'm like, "There's my buddy Per. That's awesome to see." You said that you were a copy machine and that you learned from many people. And I love that, a copy machine. It's like you're still under construction, that, we've never arrived. You're always learning. When you were into your early coaching days, who were you getting your coaching advice from?
You know, Andy Jackson, who I played for, he had unreal strength. He was, and he pushed us really hard. He was super organized, and he cared. He really cared about the team and us, and he was as motivated. He was probably more motivated than we were. So that hunger that he had as a coach, that really stood out to me. I think he'll agree now. He's grown as a coach as well. He maybe wasn't the best tactician or mental coach, which is maybe what I needed back then. But I learned a lot from him. And then when I was with Adam Steinberg at Pepperdine was the first time that I really saw, because Adam, he was very interested in learning from other big coaches, and so he knew a lot more about that stuff than I did, and so my mind just was blown away with some of the things that I didn't even know existed that you could use on a tennis court, both tactically and mentally, and so I really learned a lot from Adam there. And then when I became the head coach at Mississippi State, I made a really good hire. I hired a young coach named Matt Hill. He had done the tennis program, and I should know, but I can't remember the school that he went to, but he did the tennis program, and so he had a lot of knowledge as well. So the two of us worked together, and I learned a lot from him. And that's been my favorite part about coaching is having a staff that you're just not teaching them, but you're
Mhm.
learning a lot from them as well. And I don't think I've changed over the years. I try to steal when I see things that work or I see things that I like. I'm like, okay, I want to try that, and I want to see if that works. And so I've had really good assistant coaches, and I tell recruits all the time, I'm no genius by any means, but I care a lot, and I'm going to try to help them. And if we can find a way to make them better, we're going to try to use it.
Yeah. When do you remember realizing, hey, I've got some leadership qualities as an assistant. I want to be a head coach. Did you ever that ever hit you?
I don't really remember, to be honest with you. I know that when I was at the assistant at Pepperdine on the men's side, I really enjoyed it. I liked the life out there. I was having a lot of fun, but I wasn't making any money, so it was really difficult to survive as an assistant back then. And so that is the first time that I looked over on the women's side and was like, hey, maybe I could see myself be a head coach, at some point. But I wasn't in a rush, and we won the national championship our fourth year there, and it just happened to the timing. That's when the Mississippi State coach decided to move on, and so that's when Mississippi State. 'Cause sometimes you have to be lucky with timing there, and so
Mhm.
when they called, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll give it a shot and see what it's like, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
Yeah. Tell me about your coaching style. You said before said, one of the keys to being a good coach is to work with good people. Some people outside college don't understand all the people a coach has to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that question before, and I've thought about it. What is my style? And for a long time, I would say that I don't know. I don't know if I have a style, but now that there's transfer portals, that question it seems like it's coming up more and more. Like, well, what are you like as a coach? And we're trying to make sure that we find a good fit for players, and then I want them to know what kind of coach I am as well. So I don't have a specific style of coaching as far as how a player needs to play. I think my style is I believe you have to work hard to succeed. And so I don't want to waste time. We get a lot of you've seen this, there's players that will say, I spend so many hours on court. And I'm like, well, you don't really have to spend that many hours on court if you do it right. And so I try to have a style, I guess, and that is we're not going to waste time. And we're going to try to do everything possible to help you. And, we're not perfect, but, we're going to sit down with each player and try to figure out what it is they need to be successful and to try to make them as good as we can. And everyone is different, and everybody comes in with certain strengths and weaknesses. And I guess we try to teach them the things that are going to help them the most. And that's not that hard. I mean, my dad is 82 years old, never played tennis, but he will sometimes tell me after he watches some of our players, he's like, "Well, her serve needs to get better," and I'm like, "Yep, you're
Wow.
right, Dad. You're right. How are we going to get it better? How are we going to get her excited to get it better? How are we going to get her on board? Because she actually doesn't think her serve is that bad. She thinks it's her backhand that's causing all the issues." And
Hmm.
so, navigating that part with a player is I guess a strength of mine, I think. And so we spend an enormous amount of time talking to them and trying to see what they're thinking, and then try to get on the same page of things so that we can do the things that maybe we need to do.
Hmm. You've mentioned that you want to build the right culture. So the right culture's investing in the player, not just this is the way we do it. You got to follow our path.
If a player doesn't enjoy most of the time, they don't enjoy some of the drills. They don't enjoy some of the information that and some of the things that you say to them, because sometimes the truth can be tough to handle. But I think a player has to. really enjoy the coaching that we're trying to give them. And so, you know, that culture of, hey, I'm there for the player. I'm here for you. You know, like just like I need you to be there for me when I'm asking you to put in a good day's work, even though you might not feel like it, because it's going to affect everyone else that's there at that point. And so that culture is very important with what we're trying to do. And you know, I thought we were on the right track this year, but yeah, it's definitely something that we're trying to hit on strongly.
Yeah. You mentioned that I have a quote here. It says that every day we have a plan for all 7 players for that team with their individual development. When I heard that, I thought, how much pre-practice planning do you and your assistant go into? Okay, today's Tuesday, tomorrow's Wednesday, Thursday. We don't have a match until Friday. You know, how's that structure go? A lot of team meetings with you and your coaching staff beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, Axel is my assistant right now, and either I'm in his office or he's in my office. I mean, we're basically like a doubles team tied together, like we talk about at the net, following each other, because there is so much talk about what needs to be done for each player. And I used to not want to tell people what we do because I was like, oh, well, I don't want the secret to be
Secret, yeah.
out, like, but I don't anymore because it's so hard anyway to do it, and we're not perfect, and we mess up all the time. But we really try to make sure that we have a plan each day for that player, because I know, and that's what it was like for me at Mississippi State. Is Andy Jackson was super organized, and every Monday we did the same thing, every Tuesday we did the same thing, every Wednesday so I knew for 4 years we did basically the same thing, and I loved it because I got to play with these good players, and I had fun and I was competitive. Some of my teammates who were way more experienced than I was, either as players or the coaching they've had, they kind of got a little bored with it. I didn't get bored. I just realized now that, man, I need more than half the time. I needed to be doing other things. I needed to work on my mental game, which means I needed to play points with a coach that was walking with me, that could give me the language that I needed to change my self-coaching language was the opposite of what it needed to be, but I didn't realize that at the
Hmm.
time. So I needed that. To I needed to be talked to in the office and be told about tactics, and go, hey, here are some of the things that you can do against Christoph is chopping you because you're changing direction every other ball, and you're just running all the time or whatever. And so I think that making sure that we're doing that, because I know that that is the easiest thing, is to roll out the baskets. And today we're doing cross courts. Today we're doing a physical. Today we're doing doubles. Today we're working on transition. And it can feel like an unbelievable practice, and it can be really fun. But half of the players wasted their time. They didn't work on the things that they needed to do. And so it's incredibly hard to do it every single day. But what we try to do is we do a lot of individuals. So in the mornings, we're on court with them and we're working on that specific thing. And then in the afternoon, pretty much every day, I ask each person, I go down the line and I go, hey, do you know where you're working on? And it's usually one or two things. It's one or two main things that they're working on. And we just did it that morning. And now it's their job to try to implement that in whatever it is that we're doing in the afternoon. And sometimes it looks like everybody's doing the same drill, but they might be working on 5 specific things individually out there. And so we've been trying to do that for a long time. And I think that's the key when you're working with multiple players, to do that.
I love what you just said there, how you said that you asked the player, do you know what you're working on? Or what are you working on?
Yeah. Well, you could tell right away from their answer. And it's supposed to be boom, they know exactly. and
Right.
and sometimes it is, but usually with a player that's been with me for at least a year, they know. But when it's incoming players that haven't been there that long, a lot of times they guess, or they say something and it's not at all, what I think it is. And so
Hmm.
that's something that we'll then work on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll have a brave player that's like, man, I don't remember, or I don't know. And there's not a, that's fine. But that's when we need to make sure, okay, well, so when they start warming up, myself or the other staff will go over to that player and be like, hey, remember, hey, this is the main thing today. And then these other things, they're just reminders, which
Right.
we do every time we're on court.
Hmm.
Dude, don't go down the line there. But that's probably not the main thing,
Yeah.
So
Well, that's you just hit something there, that the clear communication with the player. I remember when we were practicing, we embraced the mundane, and there was never a question of why are we doing 25 forehands in a row, 25. I hated that, but it was good for my game because I was looking for the first short ball. I had zero patience, and I also had zero skill to stay back for 25 balls. But when you got into the match, you understood that I could hang from the baseline. Why? Because we did in practice. Saying all that, it seems like today's kids ask why all the time. Like when you and I were kids, we didn't ever ask the coach why. Why are we doing this? So it seems like your communication is a good two-way street, to where they question, you ask them what they're doing, they can respond back, they feel free to talk to you. So we're on the same page and we're all getting it done.
I mean, communication, I think, is everything. It's so important. And we'll have some players that come in, they don't say a word on court because they haven't been allowed to, you know,
Yeah.
but by parents or by coaches. And then you have some that they fight you on everything. And so, that's the magic wand right there, I think, in coaching, is how do you figure out to get that communication to work with that specific player? Because the ultimate goal is for them to be able to do this on their own. Like, it's amazing. College tennis is amazing when you can walk with them, you can sit down with them, you feel, and you're playing with them, and it's easy to communicate. But eventually you're wanting to step away and for them to be able to think and do the things on their own. And yeah, I think that's the most fun part of my job, is that I've got one player that, you could say, man, she's tough. But yeah, well, I was tough, and I didn't do it on purpose. I just didn't know. I had no idea. And, it would have been nice to have had someone that maybe would have been perfect fit for me and helped me to figure things out, instead of just trying to hit it harder, or
Right.
getting more and more frustrated.
Yeah. How are you on match days? I remember what I was like as a player. How are you waking up going, hey, we got a match today? Are you little rituals or butterflies or quiet
For
around the
sure.
house?
No, it depends on the match. The we did a lot of winning at Pepperdine, and I was with a staff there for multiple years. And the most nervous we were are the matches that we felt like, well, we're supposed to win these we're
Mhm.
supposed to win, and so super tight. What if someone messes up, or what if we lose a double? Like, there was a lot of nerves, I think, on our side there. And then when we did win, it didn't it was never it didn't feel as great. There was no big celebration.
Mhm.
And when we were ranked in the top 10, top 5 for 8, 9 years there. And so we were supposed to win a lot. And it got to the point where we were like, okay, this we can't keep going. It's always the team needs to it's hard to win a match. And
Mhm.
it's we needed to celebrate all those wins more. And I think that helped a lot when we looked at it that way. When we played another top 5 team, there was not a lot of nerves, because it's like, hey, we're not going to lose much if we lose, and if we win, it's great. And so let's just go and have some fun. But we were playing teams that were ranked lower than us most of the time, and those were stressful. But we tried to turn it by, look, it's hard to win a match no matter who you play against. It doesn't matter. And
Mhm.
that's what if we're going to tell the player that every time you step on the court, you don't know what's going to happen, and you got to respect the game, and like, you're going to bring what you can bring that day. Well, then we got to kind of do it as coaches too,
Yeah.
right? And not
Yeah.
just so it got a little bit better once we started doing that.
I guess it's kind of tough sitting there. I remember as a player, you're looking down the line and you see the scoreboard and you hear your buddy getting pumped up and stuff. It's like, okay, no pun intended, the Pepperdine waves, but the wave of emotion that, hey, we're winning today. Pear's kicking butt here, and then all of a sudden I lift up my game. But then there are those days that I'm a little off, and then I look at you and you're a little off, and oh crap. And then we start to feel, that pressure, the mythical feeling of it. I say mythical because it's kind of hard to measure, but you can feel those, I guess, waves of emotion or momentum.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also the reason why I am still coaching and wanting to coach at this level is because I feel like I am competing. Like I'm drained after a match, and I tell they tell me that they're tired. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm way more tired than you. I just played 9 matches, 3 doubles and six
Yeah,
singles. Yeah, and they roll their eyes. They think I'm crazy, but
yeah,
that is my way of competing now. I don't play that much. I don't play any matches anymore. My matches is the team matches, and it's like I'm competing. And yeah, I'm competing against the other coaches. There's that drive there just as a player. So the nerves are going to be there, and you know it's really fun. But
yeah,
I don't want to be 20 I don't want to be 10 in the country. Same
yeah,
as I was when I was a player. I don't want to be 10.
yeah,
I want to be one, and it's the
yeah.
same when you
Right.
coach.
I think I know your answer, but let's say I'm a player and I'm losing and you come up to the fence. What's the first thing you say?
I mean, it depends on how you are. If you're like me, bitching and moaning and doing a bad job with your emotions, then I'm going to tell you to breathe, to slow down. I'll try to get your attention because I know your attention is on something that it shouldn't be, and I'm just like, hey, look, we're going to be fine. But if we're being really good mentally and we're just playing someone that's playing lights out and we're getting our butts kicked, I might be like, hey, look, you're going to be okay. We're going to be just fine, but maybe we need to try something different. So, but
Hmm.
a lot of if we're losing, a lot of players just feel like, oh, this is the end of the world, or like this is something, and it's like, hey, we're take this as a challenge, like let's go.
Yeah,
And a lot of it will be the opposite of what I try to do. So I just flip it.
yeah. I, it brings me to the question about the pro tour because college coaches, I remember one of my coaches coming up when I was losing. And what I was alluding to is that you would ask a question, what's going on here? Where's he beating you? What do you see? What's this girl doing to you? Where are their weaknesses? Then you start to try to process things. I personally cannot stand the coaching on the pro tour. From all these years that you and I grew up playing tennis, now we're on the pro tour and our coach is 6 feet behind the court. And I know people like it for the entertainment value. I don't think it's a level playing field either because if you're top 10, you can hire Brad Gilbert or Paul Annacone, where top 100 might not. How do you feel about the coaching on the pro level, being courtside?
Well, I kind of agree with you. It's so different from player to player. You have some that have a team that's sitting up there, and you have some. There's not many that have the resources that the top players will have. I don't mind the coaching. I just think that I probably don't think that it should be the nonstop whenever they're on this. I think I kind of like the in between sets, or you can
Yeah.
you can get some advice there. But yeah, I mean, I have some former players that are out there playing now, and one of them is 35 WTA, and she has a very good coach, and then she has a physical trainer that travels with her. That's her little team, and so she has access to good stuff. But then there's also one that's 100. She doesn't have quite the same resources, and there's a girl that's breaking into the top 200 now, and she's by herself.
Mm,
And so, but yeah, when we're talking about on the tour, I think you and I agree. Like it's the tour is that's top 100. Those are the tour players. As long as it's good coaching, it's great. When
yeah.
when it's not good coaching, then it can
Yeah.
be tough.
Yeah. You mentioned You said one of the most gratifying things about being a coach is helping players with all the off-court stuff. Can you expand on that, like, especially the life of a college kid?
Well, I'll give you an example of a girl that I had for 3 years at Pepperdine. Her name is Janice Chen. She's the one I told you she's top 40 WTA in singles and doubles right now. A year and a half ago, she had 0 points. She played 4 or 5 for me at Pepperdine, and then gradually she would move up. It seemed like every season she would start at 3, 4, and then by the end of the spring, she was our number 1 player. And one of the reasons was she likes winning, but she doesn't love everything about tennis. So she hates fitness. She doesn't like spending too much time. And so we figured out real it took us we figured out that we if we overtrained this girl just by 1 day, it could be a disaster. It could be 2 weeks of, not wanting to be on court, affecting everything else. So it became almost, hey, we're going to give this girl 2 days a week off, one to sleep and one to play video games. And, so on Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, depending on the schedule, she'd show up. Couldn't really talk to her before 10 a.m. in the morning. She wasn't a morning person. And but once we learned that, she would show up and be like, "Yeah, I feel kind of rested. I'm ready to go." But before that, we were like, "No, 1 day off is enough. Let's go." And so I think it's super important to know off court how to make sure that you're in a good place there so that when they come to the court, they're excited to be there. They're not like, I want to be somewhere else. Or they're thinking about something that maybe I said the day before, which was, "Hey, why are you not going as hard as you should?" you know? Well, she was burned out. And so, you know what? Go sleep, go do whatever you got to do. If that means that you're going to come tomorrow and be ready to go. And
Mm.
then over time, she was like, "Yeah, I think I only need 1 day off today,
Oh,
or this week." And then it's like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so a year and a half ago, 0 points, no ranking. I think she won 112 matches, on these 35Ks, 50Ks, she lost 9 matches and won 112. And now she's playing the slams and she's 30 in the world. And she calls me every 2, 3 weeks and we just kind of talk. And we haven't talked tennis once.
oh, really?
Nope.
How about that?
Yeah, because if she asks me, I'll tell her. But I think we have a relationship where we both realize that she's going to be fine on court. She has a coach that knows her game and is helping her. And sometimes I'll talk to him and we have a few. We go back and forth a little bit. But with her, it's more, hey, what's it like? Are you lonely? What's fun? When are we going to see each other? You was
Mhm.
open, yeah, for sure. Let's go out for dinner. And then she'll be like, "Man, I'm really struggling because I was winning so much last year, and now, I'm losing second round,
Right.
third round and so we're talking about things like that. And if you have things in your mind on court and in college, you got academics, you got the social life. And so really important to balance that because when you get me and my coach, my coaches, we're so hungry and so excited to be on court with you. We notice right away if you're there or not. And then we'll clash, and I don't want them on court if they're going to be like that. But at the same time, they have to balance that so that because you and I know we are on court coaching and teaching sometimes and we don't want to be there, or something's going on at home and we got to shut that off and pretend like nothing's going on. And I
Mhm.
think we probably I hope we do a good job, and they got to learn how to do it too. But
Right.
it's got a good balance with them and making sure that off court stuff is good.
Yeah. From when I've seen some of your videos and your players' comments about you, that how much you care. I want to get to you taking the University of Florida job. Were you called fall to come take the job in the middle of the season?
I was.
Okay. Now you've got to tell your team at Pepperdine, I'm leaving. How difficult. I can't imagine that was for them and you. I'm not trying to make you feel better or anything because it is what it is. I mean, how'd you negotiate that? That just had to be very tough.
It was It was not a good situation for anyone. It wasn't a good situation at Pepperdine. It was not a good time to leave. I don't think it is for anyone. And yeah, they it was awful because it was not at all what I wanted to do. But I also realized that this opportunity might not come again ever. There's a couple of really big programs, and if you look at the coaches that are there, they're there for 20, 30 years. They don't leave. And so yeah, we called the team in at a meeting with the athletic director, the men's coach, and the president of the university was there, and I think the team thought that I was joking. They didn't think it was true. They thought it was a little bit of a joke. And then 2 hours later, I was supposed to be introduced to the team at Florida. So going from sad moment to act like an exciting fun moment in just less than 2 hours. And I'm sure they're going through the same thing there, where their coach just suddenly that ended. So it was, I think it was a difficult situation for everyone, because I stepped into a situation that was not great, which is why the change, I guess. And then now I left the team that in the middle of the first semester. So yeah, that was an humbling experience, both to do at the time, and also going through the season the way it did. So tough,
Yeah.
not fun.
Well, I thought you handled it with class, and I was excited for you. And one of your quotes was that UF was too big of a challenge not to take.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years in college, whenever jobs open up, I've heard, oh, well, that's a good timing to go because they haven't been doing so well. So you won't look bad,
Yeah.
like you can only get
Make it
you can
look
only
better,
look
right?
good, make it look better.
Yeah.
And Florida, I felt like is not one of those jobs, and they've been doing really well for a long time. Maybe took a little dip there the last couple of years, but it was like I was happy at Pepperdine. I wasn't planning on leaving, but I was like, man, what a challenge. Let's see if the things that we've done at Pepperdine, can how will that work? How will that work at a place like Florida, which is like an animal,
Hmm.
literally an animal in sports. And so yeah, there was that. Man, let's see. Challenge is right, because I didn't take the job to be top 10. I really didn't. The same thing, the same goal that I had with Pepperdine is the same goal that I have at Florida now, that, Duke basketball, or, New England Patriots, like, okay, well, let's get Florida tennis back to that spot where I'm not going to get everyone. I know that there's going to be Gator haters, I think they call them,
Hmm.
Gator haters. They're
Yeah.
they're never going to want to be at Florida, maybe, but I want those parents, coaches, players to be like, man, what's going on down there? Like, what are they doing? At least maybe take a look at it, or a junior coach to say, hey, maybe you need to take a look at Florida. And then if they decide to go somewhere else, that's fine. But that's the reputation that I wanted to build at Pepperdine, and I think we did. It was such a niche program that it wasn't for everyone. It's 4 or 5 thousand students, no football, like just a small private school. So it wasn't for everyone.
Right.
Whereas Florida is 60,000 students, big academics, big sports, obviously. And I just wanted to be that, these players that have that drive, and they love tennis, that they're going to go, I don't know. I never thought I would look at Florida, but like, I guess I'll take a look at it and see. And then if they meet me, or they see things that, and they're like, no, that's not for me, that's fine. But I want to, that's the goal, is to make it the program. And that's the challenge.
Well, you said something about the challenge. I remember I'm a big Boston Celtics fan, and Brad Stevens was interviewed when he was at Butler to take the Celtics job. And everybody's like, who? If you followed college basketball, you knew, but still, like, this Butler guy, he said one of the things that excited him was taking the Celtics job would challenge him to the nth degree.
Yeah.
and you're a continual learner. You're always growing, you're always improving, finding different ways, talking to different people. And I was like, that sounds like my man Pear there. It's like he's excited to take that challenge. So you've really looked at it's a privilege to find that pressure at Florida. And you mentioned that things are just different there between the academics and the athletics, that there's a standard. Everybody says they have a standard of excellence, but there really is at Florida.
It really is. I mean, when I was walking on Pepperdine's campus, I knew everybody, and a lot of people knew who I was just because, it's such a small place and we had been successful. I walk around, in Gainesville now and no one knows who I am. And when I walk into the coaches meeting, I'm not sure everybody knows who I am there either, which, you know, I'm totally fine with. I'm not the kind of person that needs to be I'm fine being in the background, but I'm not gonna lie, I've told we have a head coach's pet message thread where at Florida, and I've told him, hey, we're coming. Like, hey, I know last year wasn't what we wanted to do. This year was better, but it's you know I don't need to be. It's that competitive juice in that, like, look, I'm and now I'm around a bunch of coaches that, like, if you're not top 10, then you're in trouble almost, it feels like.
Right.
And I don't mind that, because they care so much about, competing with the best and trying to be the best, and it's cool to see the coaches, they enjoy that too. And no, I mean, yeah, let's let's go.
That was that expression, a rising tide raises all ships. So you got that
Yeah.
competitive thing. How do you get students, regular students, to support and come to your matches?
I think you have to be creative. You got to figure out who are the people that you can get to come to your matches. And at Mississippi State, we did a little different thing. I was on the men's side there, so we went to sororities and introduced them to them, and then we had a giveaway back then. Where maybe plasma TVs were kind of expensive. We were giving away plasma TVs to the sororities that would bring the most students to our matches, and it worked out great because some of the big sororities made it mandatory for them to come. So we had like 750 girls at our men's match. It was packed. It was amazing, but that's not work. I can't go to the sororities now and get them to come to watch the women as easily as I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
and so I'm just, when I first got here at Florida, we didn't really have a team. We were in survival mode when I got here. And then so a year ago to this date, it was myself and one player on the team. That was it. And so all focus was on, okay, we have to have six players to compete. I need a staff. And so that was my focus. And so now that I've put a team together and we're kind of starting to get to where we need to be, the focus is going to be more on, okay, what do we need to do to bring fans in the stands? And we have 12 courts. I think that there should be a free junior clinic going on during doubles. I think there should be music in the back there so that it's exciting, and then parents can watch matches and get an hour and a half of free babysitting. We should do that for every SEC weekend match. So that's one of the goals for next spring. We started playing music. So during doubles, when there's only one, we're trying to make it more fun for the crowd, and not just, when you go to the US Open, I go every year, obviously, and it's like Disney World for adults. Everybody looks happy. It's loud, it's music, it's a party. And I think tennis, needs more of that in a good way somehow, where it's not out of control. Obviously, we know we've tried different things, but this year when there was only one doubles match left and it was a changeover, I told my staff, hey, I want music pumping for 1 minute there when they're sitting down. And same for singles. When it's one match left and it's a changeover, we're playing music. They do that in basketball. Every time
Right.
out there's music.
Yeah.
I went to a softball game. They're playing music in between pitches. And, I had a couple of teams get so mad about it because and I'm like, look, I'm going to do this. I don't think it's against the rules, and you should do it too. And I
Hmm.
watched the NCAA tournament on TV, a couple of weeks ago, and I watched a channel where there was no commercials, so you basically had the announcers kind of talking to each other, and the people were sitting down. And I'm like, it's dead now, and there's 4,000 people in the stands. This should be,
Right.
we will rock you right now, like. And so we're just trying to figure out creative ways of making it exciting for people to come and watch. Because if you do get them there and they see a good match, they can't tell if the players are playing good or bad. They can tell if they're into it and they're
Yeah.
competing hard. And
Yeah.
then if you can create an atmosphere that's fun for most of the people there, I think it's
Yeah.
a great product.
I think it's great at the University of Georgia where guy in court one hits a winner, looks at the crowd, and they start barking. If you're on court two, guess what? Hit next short ball, he's doing the same thing, and it's like there's a nice home court advantage right there.
I mean, I've told my players that they have to interact with the crowd, and a lot of times they don't know what I mean. So I tell them, hey, look, if it's a side court and there's some people there, you need to run up and give them a high five after you win a good point, or like
Right.
you need to look up into the crowd when you've done something
Yeah.
well. You have to entertain. And so after each match, we thank the crowd, and we let them come to practices, and we have a lot of fans that are involved with our program, which is
Yeah.
great.
There's a kid I used to coach recreationally here. He was in the percussion section, the drum line in South Carolina, and I found this out recently that he gets to go to all the football games because he's in the marching band. But everybody wants to go to football games as an undergrad and get to tickets. They have a thing there, an app. I forget it's their sports app or whatever. Like for instance, if you went to women's field hockey, you got like 2 points for going to it. And then you go out, you scan your phone, you get another 3 points. And it's like the more points you get by supporting athletics, the better
That's
your
a good.
chances at football tickets. I'm like, that's genius. It's like,
Yeah.
who's going to see the swimming unless you were a swimmer in high school? And he said it's great because people support athletics. It's like people are showing up. And when we were in college, I'm not sure. Did you play Did you play doubles first at Mississippi State? Had they changed it
M-
already?
m- My freshman year, we did that 2 out of 3
Yeah.
sets.
After
Starting
singles.
after singles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So inevitably, when I was at Barry, we had a little walkthrough between courts 1, 2, and 3 and 4. And guys and girls would walk back and forth to the library, to the gym, to the dorms. And I'll never forget, we played Jack State. Well, the guy I played and beat, and then my teammate lost. We happened to be playing doubles together. So two people are going to be ticked off for the rest of the day because they lost twice. Well, we had bad blood. We knew each other. And I got popped with an overhead. And I heard somebody go, "Oh, did you see that? He just got rocked." And then, well, a couple points later, we had an overhead. My partner hit one of their guys, and people thought like it was wrestling. And cocky college kids, you're chirping, and the coaches are like, keep it down, play tennis, right? But we were headhunting. First chance I overhead, we're trying to hit somebody. I go to the dining hall that night and you could hear people, "Oh, it was awesome. He hit him with the ball." And it's like, well, heaven forbid if you guys would come out every now and then, and
Yeah.
cheer us on. But like you said, people want some interaction and entertainment. And I think college atmosphere, I remember watching Ben Shelton. And as a coach, I was sitting there watching the NCAAs that year and every point. And I thought, man, that's a lot of energy you're expending. But you forget what it's like to be 19, 20, 21. You can keep that up for 2.5 hours and you're
For
feeding
sure.
off your teammates. I would ask you, do you like coaching men or women? Is there a big difference?
No, I don't know if there's a big difference. There's small differences, but I don't know if I prefer one or the other. I really don't. I mean, right now I'm kind of even with how long I coached men and how long I coached women, and it's more the people. It's more the people than anything. And yeah, little differences. Obviously, a lot of serve and forehand on the men's side. More things that you can do. You can try on the women's side. You can always try a few things when you run into a 6'6" guy that's serving bombs and hitting big forehands. Sometimes that can be tough, but I, I don't know. I've enjoyed both, and I guess I could do both. But right now, I'm loving this.
Yeah. So who do you turn to when you need advice? Is there somebody outside of tennis or do you stick within the tennis realm?
I mean, I have my doubles partner and best friend from Sweden. We grew up together. We played at Mississippi State together, and he lived 15 minutes from me in Malibu. So we that's probably a person that's a well that's the person I reach out to if it's not tennis related, just life related. And then I have two or three coaching buddies that are super tight with that we reach out to. I think everybody has those two three guys that you those are your guys that will be there for you no matter what. And
Yeah.
so my wife obviously has been doing this with me for a long time, and she's moved with me whenever we've made moves, start Vegas, Atlanta, Malibu, now Gainesville. So we've been all over the place. And so she gets the brunt of the bad thoughts, and
Yeah.
whenever I come home, and she's also there to help out.
Stark Vegas. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, start Vegas.
Yeah, it is. That's good. Well, it's talked about so much about the mental side for athletes, and I don't think that's talked enough about coaches, what you go through that everybody figures out the coach has got it all figured out. And you and I have talked off air that sometimes coaches are afraid to talk about what they go through because you don't want to be fragile.
For sure. When I was at Pepperdine, I was doing an individual one day, and a guy sat down in the first row of the bleachers. It was completely empty. I was just doing an individual, and I didn't recognize him at first, but he just looked like sometimes you look at someone and they look like a tennis person.
Yeah.
And he sat and watched the individual, and then halfway through getting some water, I just walked over and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And it turned out it was Thomas Hudstedt, who's a Swedish former player and has coached, Sharapova, Madison Keys, Lee Na.
Yeah.
His coaching resume is an absolute joke. And it turned out that his daughter was just a regular student at Pepperdine, and so he enjoyed watching, and we became friends ever since. And we met up at the U.S. Open, that year, I think, and had dinner. And I was a little nervous because here I am, a nobody, and he's like, he's one of the great coaches out there, and has been doing it for a long time. And uh, I was so curious to what it was like to be a coach on the pro tour with just one player. Like, what? How do you do that? Like,
Hmm.
and I was thinking about that when I was going to dinner about all the questions that I had for him. And then it turned out once we sat down that he was so curious about how can you coach eight players at the
Yeah.
same time, and so we had a great interaction there and it was the same. It all comes down to having a good team around you that can be there for you, help you, and so it was really cool to see. And he's he goes through tough times and same as I have. Sometimes you have to battle, and you get stronger, and you try to learn from it, and you try to help now the people that you're around now to either do a better job or not make the mistakes that you've done in the past.
Have you ever entertained the thought of coaching on the pro tour? Or would you rather work with the group of kids and have a team?
I've never thought that anyone would want me to be on the pro tour with them, so that has never really entered my mind. I think I think college jobs has become so attractive. We actually get a lot of questions from tour coaches like, how can I become a college coach? How do you get into that business? And I think just like how tough it is to be a pro player, if you really want to become one of the top players, how high you got to get all that recognition and money. And I think it's the same for a coach on the pro tour. You can strike gold and, be with a player for 3, 4 years is doing really well. And then maybe you're in that now and you move from player to player, but it's not, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm good enough to do that, but it seems like I found my little niche here in
Yeah.
college coaching. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sabalenka calls, who
All
knows?
right. There you go.
I don't know. I don't know. Or
Uh,
someone that's going to make me look good.
There you
My
go.
players is who make me look good. So
Well, are you a fan of ad or no ad scoring? I know you play no ad in Division One, but playing when we played, the traditionalist says you got to win points by 2, but man, that intensity of no ad's pretty tough.
I love it. I think eventually it will go to that on the tour because of the pressure and the excitement for the fans. I know that there's lots of us, traditionalists that love, the back and forth, and I understand that. But eventually, what drives the sport is fan interaction and fan interest, and it is. When there was a while where there was a sign being pulled up on a tennis court when it was a no ad deciding point, and I don't know why we got away from that because
Yeah.
crowds love the majority of their crowds. The excitement of a deuce point is really fun and high. And when it's deuce in regular scoring, it's deuce. Like, yes, I get it. It's unbelievable. Oh, this game has gone for so long. I get it, but you know if we really think about an average person who doesn't watch tennis as much, it grabs their attention much more,
Yeah.
I think. And
Yeah.
mentally, like every point is so important. And, I love it. As a
Yeah.
coach, I love it. And as a player, I think I would have really liked it too.
Yeah, they've screwed around with the Alta system here. Just last spring, they put in the third set breaker, 10-point breaker, and instead of a third set, unless everybody agrees to play a third set. And
Okay.
and then when they got to playoffs, it went to 3 full sets. And I could spend 5 hours explaining why I think it's a bad system, but when you play 2 sets regular scoring, you can never measure deuce and the differences of the way the match has been played. But now we just roll the dice for 10 points. And I've always argued I'd rather play 3 sets no ad than to do 2 full sets and then, a 10-minute breaker like we used to do in that pro league. I never really felt like we lost or really won when you won, but you take the money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I was against early in my coaching in college. I was against different, like, experimenting with different formats because I'm like, oh, don't mess up, don't mess up what we have. But you know, what if there was a format that helped and made it easier to be on TV, or
yeah,
was able to get kids in the stands as well, and now I'm like, well, I'll try anything. I mean, I made a joke to a coach this spring where I said, hey, what if we play a 10-point breaker for each doubles match and a 10-point breaker for each singles match? Like, how intense would that feel? And we
yeah.
told the crowd, hey, this is it. This is the match. Hey,
Be
it's
done
going
in
to be
30 minutes, right?
it's going to be a 30-minute match, and maybe
Yeah.
that's too short, but like, just imagine the intensity of every single point,
Holy
the
cow.
nerves, yeah. And you know what? I would, if someone, they're doing this volleyball thing in Dallas, I think, with 4 teams, and it's $1 million to the winning team. I know Florida is one of the teams that's in it. And I'm like, if someone told me, hey, there's going to be four teams, tennis teams, the matches are going to be a super breaker for each match, and we're going to put you on ESPN. I'm like, dude, you tell me whatever
Right.
format you want,
Yeah.
and whatever is going to excite it. And so I've changed a lot, and I think there's just, you know,
Yeah.
why not? If you told me, hey, you want to come to Atlanta and we'll play these two guys for a tie break, and I'd probably suit up, let's
Yeah.
go.
Well, think about what you just said about TV. It's a maximum of 7 points. That's a game. So 14 points later, unless they have 30 ball rallies, when you're going to get your TV timeouts in there
Yes.
because a
Yeah.
forever deuce game. Yeah, I'm a fan of no ad just because I remember playing on the ad side, and I played at NAIA school, but then when we played Division One schools, NCAA, it's like you're serving to me 15-30 and you missed the first serve. It was like it kind of
Yeah.
neutralizes the big server. They can't go for too much because I'm like, I'm about to get 3 game points here. And
Yeah.
then the pressure would go to the servers. And so I always felt like it seemed like we could upset better players with no ad scoring just because we're used to playing deuce. But if they change tennis tomorrow to no ad, I think that would be very exciting. And
I
just
do
play
too.
3 full sets because that's basically an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
I asked you about the coaching on the pro level earlier. Let's get right into the heart of the matter about college tennis and that it was, I guess it was about 4 6 weeks ago, the world erupted when Arkansas decided they're going to cancel tennis, and then they're bringing back tennis now. What do you hear? You're at one of the top 5 schools in the country, but what in the world is going on with college tennis? Because of Is it because of football and NIL, all this money? What do you see sitting in your chair?
I think it's definitely harder for these athletic departments to spend money, and they have to find ways of cutting their budgets, over the last 20, 30 years. I think it's been an arms race, right? And it's not just Georgia, Florida, these big schools with facilities, with hiring coaching staffs, scholarships going up. I think it's just gone so fast, so quick, and now they're forced to do something, because they have a budget. No one can just do whatever they want. There's maybe a few that can, but so I think, and then now you add the rev share and the legislation that they got hit with, where they have to come up with 20 million plus, and yeah, they're really struggling, and I. I don't envy those ads and presidents that have to try to figure out a way. If I'm there in their shoes, where am I going to want to put my money? I'm going to put the money in the sports that bring in some revenue, that are putting, fans in the stands, big time boosters are interested in, and also that are winning. I mean, I told my sports admin the other day, I said, look, I feel like the better we are, the better chance there is that the AD is going to go, well, we're not going to touch women's tennis. I mean, look, they're one or two in the country. We're leaving those guys alone. And so, and you've also you have all these NCAA rules about how many scholarships you have to give out to the women and the men and the student population, and all that it gets a little complicated. But yeah, it's not great. And then you got some sports that are popular on TV now, and
Hmm.
tennis isn't one of them, and it's a scary time. There's programs that are being cut. I think, you know I'm not going to lie. When I went to Florida a year and a half ago, one of the things, well, nothing's going to happen with an SEC school like that. I feel safe there.
Yeah.
Pepperdine is not in a Power Four conference, and so who knows? Tennis happens to be a very successful sport there, so I didn't feel that there. But you never know. When I went to Florida, I was like, yeah, well, nothing's going to happen there. So when Arkansas news came out, it was kind of like, well, is that going to give the other ads a reason to, like, well, if they're going to do it, now I can do it too?
Right.
Florida, I've talked to my AD, and he said we're not cutting any sports here. We're gonna find a way to support all our programs, and what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to win. I'm gonna try to win,
Yeah.
and then I'm also gonna try to get in touch with as many people in the community as possible and have that support there, where we maybe we can be self-efficient with the fundings, and not only rely on the budget
Right.
that they have to do. But yeah, it's definitely not great right now for the Olympic sports. I think they're all feeling the squeeze and the pressure.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's you scratch your head when you hear about the TV contracts, and every time somebody buys a new streaming service for this and that, you would think, well, the money's just flowing all to the athletic programs, and the kids are just rolling in the money, and that's not
Yeah,
always the
well,
case.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is the AD, his mind, his or her mind is not on tennis that often. You know, there's a lot of ads that just, hey, just you know do what you're supposed to do. Don't get us in trouble. Represent the university in a good way. And I think there are some programs that take winning a little bit too far, where once the ads find out, well, what are we actually doing here? Is that what we want to be doing?
Yeah.
And so I think we have to do a really good job making the ads and the presidents feel like tennis is worth it. That's a
Hmm.
it's a it's it is a sport that we continue to play for a long time in our lives, and there's a lot of people that are in the tennis world, and let's not mess that up by, you know, doing wild, wild west things that, we shouldn't be doing.
Exactly. Well, I want to be considerate of your time, and I appreciate your time so far. I want to just throw a couple quick questions at you. This could be any sport. Who's your all-time favorite athlete?
Nadal.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah.
All right. You like that baseline, huh?
Just the mentality and how he went about things, I just really respect. It's not so much the game that he plays,
Okay.
it's more of the person that he was. And I don't know him, but if I could go back and do things differently, I'd probably copy his mentality and the way he went about things.
Tell your son I said hello.
Reef, Rob says hi. Keep your
He's
clothes on.
yeah. Hey, buddy, your dad's almost done. All right, it's the first time we had a cameo of his son. Oh, that's funny.
All
All
right,
right,
I'm almost done, buddy. You got to give me a few more minutes.
who's your all-time favorite sports team?
That is a difficult one for me because I've been moving around so much. When I was in Atlanta, then I was a Falcons fan. Then moved out to California. I was in LA. I guess I would just say the Swedish national teams in any sport. Growing up in Sweden, and so whenever there's Olympics and
Yeah.
thing, I cheer for them. Now I'm both a Swede and an American. I like individuals more than teams. I mean, I was a Chicago Bulls fan when I was in college because of Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
but I like individuals. So I'll have players on different teams that I really like, and then I usually end up, liking that team, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard. I was never a Dallas Cowboys fan, but then when Dak Prescott went to Dallas, because when I was at Mississippi State coaching, he was there and got to know him a little bit. So then I was obviously a Dak
Okay.
Prescott fan. So then I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, which was a little difficult sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So, we make that argument, which, I say, let's go to the bar and talk about it for a few hours, like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and, Sampras, Bjorn Borg, Rod Laver. If you could name one player to win one match to save your life, who would it be and on what surface?
I mean, yeah, I would have to be Nadal at the French Open. Obviously, I think that's where I would put my money. As he said, "Hey, I've got you." I'll go with him.
I mean, here's what's fun, like the way that our sports changed so dramatically. How about Borg at his peak and they're both using wood rackets? That would be
The-
interesting.
yeah, that then I might change my mind on
Yeah.
that one.
Or
You know,
no polyester strings, right? Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Tell him to sit tight. Just a couple more minutes.
Okay, couple of more minutes. I'm done.
All right. Tell me the greatest comeback of any college match that you've coached.
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, when we won the national championship at Pepperdine against Georgia in the finals, we Isner played for Georgia. We lost five first sets in the singles,
Wow.
and no one panicked. No one. That's fine. No one panicked. We didn't even think we were in that big of a hole. That's how good of a team that was, and we ended up winning 4-2 there. And so that was probably a little bit of a comeback. That was really impressive from the guys.
That's big. Do you remember who hit match point?
Yeah, it was Andre Begeman was at number 4 against or Small, or I can't remember exactly his name, but yeah, it was 6-3 in the third on an inside out backhand volley, serving volley.
Nice. And then
Yeah, that's right.
the dog pile, they jump on them.
It was a dog pile. It was at Stanford. I know. They have that big stadium on the inside where the 1, 2, and 3 played, and Isner beat our number 1, 4, and 6, I think, or something like that. And then
Yeah.
there were number 2 singles was still going on in the third, and we won it at number 4 on the outside course. But it was nice.
That's great. All right. Last question for you. What's your all time favorite book?
You know, that's a good one too. Mm. I like. I guess it's called Papillon, which they made a movie on later on with Steve McQueen, and it was. I guess it's called The Butterfly. It was Carre. Carre was the one he wrote. I think he wrote. I think he wrote another super famous book, but my mind is
Okay.
frozen now. But
All right.
that's probably one of my favorite books I've ever
Cool.
read.
Well, again, man, I appreciate your time, and I love some of the things you talked about, like the decisions players make, and can be impressive or make you want to pull your hair out. And the self-coaching language. I think all college kids and the recreational people too. Some of the stuff you hear, it's just like, well, that's not really good.
Yeah, well, sometimes when I get a player in, I'll tell them what I hear them tell themselves, and they kind of they
Yeah.
back off, and they're like, "What?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Wait, you don't want me to coach you like that?" And they're like, "No." I said, "Well, that's how you're coaching yourself.
Right.
That's what you're saying." And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
seem to work sometimes, especially when they speak out loud.
I'm not sure who it was, but I read something that said even your thoughts, that your self-talk, that if your thoughts could be like at the bottom of the ticker on TV, that the whole world could hear what you're thinking. It's like, wow, that's scary, right? You might change
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah, well, I'm gonna steal that one from you now. So you're
yeah,
part of the Gator. You're
go
part of
ahead.
the Gator coaching staff now. I'm gonna be using that.
All right, man. I'll be glad to come on down there and chomp a little bit. So,
That's right.
so well, hey, Per Nilsson, let's cheer on the Gators next year. I think you're a great leader, man. Seriously, and I'm not saying that just because we're friends, but I've watched your coaching career ascend, and I wish you nothing but success, and hope the Gators get a ring very soon.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate you. Been a while since we've talked, and glad we're connected again.
Yeah, sounds great. So, for you out there that like this episode, please forward it to all your friends and subscribe. And till next time, make the most of your time and always hang tough. Dude, that was great.